Hello, everyone. I figured I will log on. I think everyone is going to start to flood the gates of Zoom to join our call today. So we'll just do some open forum hellos. It's been a month since we've done a masterclass, so it's nice to reconnect with everyone. Hi, Kenneth. Good to see you. I love some of the familiar names.
I'm going to change that. The only person who ever called me Kenneth was my mom when she was mad at me. So.
Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. That's the two me's. One actual Melissa, one definitely smarter Melissa, who's actually John McDowell. And we'll share a name today. I'm honored. I'm gonna let everyone get in, get settled. Feel free, cameras on or off. We love the interaction though, so feel free to keep your cameras on. My goodness, there's lots of people joining all at the same time here. Love it. John, you can have the ability to share your screen. You let me know if that works based on the fact that you're logged in as me. And if not, I can give you that capability.
Okay.
Hi, Heather. Yay, I get to see so many coaches I haven't seen in a while. So it's a minute before the hour, but why not? Let's say hello and then give people time to trickle in, get themselves comfortable. So my name is Melissa Arachi. I'm one of the sports nutrition specialists with Designs for Sport. Actually, my colleague Jill Lane is also on the call, who is another one of our sports nutrition specialists. So I am going to be your host for today. Oh, there's Chris Grayson. We've got three. I'll be your host for today, and I will be introducing our amazingly talented speaker. I will also be moderating the chat, and please feel free to send a message into the chat box. I'll make sure that I keep a note of them. And as John is going through his presentation, we'll leave some room for questions afterwards, and of course, an opportunity to interact with everyone. So yep, tons of people joining. This is amazing. Thank you everyone for joining. So our master classes, for those that are new to the master class, is a education platform that the Designs for Sport Academy puts on a monthly basis. These are webinars that highlight leaders in our industry to speak on topics that they are experts in, and this individual is absolutely an expert in this field. I'm excited for this one. And we do this to bring together the coaching community, but also to be able to provide free education to continue to develop the strength and conditioning coach and give all of you more tools in your tool belts. So I am going to introduce our speaker. I'll let everyone continue, like I said, to hop on the call. And those who have just hopped on the call, again, my name's Melissa. All of our questions and comments, please use the chat box to interact, and then we'll get started shortly. So just a little bit on John McDowell. With 14 years of coaching under his belt, John is a graduate of the University of Texas, Arlington, where he ran track and finished as an NCAA Division I All-American. Now working with clients and athletes primarily at the youth development level, John helped found a scholastic performance program where he works with athletes in all sports year-round. Over the years, John has been fortunate to work with world medalists, youth national record holders, national champions, and 20 All-Americans. On a personal note, I will say I had the pleasure of training with John and the Vive team. He's gonna smile. I have never seen a human being have so many, both Gen Pop and athletic clients, all in a room together, performing movements with impeccable form, calling out tempo, not missing a rep, and modifying, regressing, and progressing depending on the capabilities of a client. But never, ever missing a rep. He knew everything going on in that room. So it was a privilege to be able to experience some of John's coaching and be a part of the Vive team. Today, of course, we're going to be talking about improving foot strength and the importance of sprint mechanics. Very big thank you to Vivo as well, who we've been able to partner with and be a part of this. John is, of course, going to get into some KPIs, essentially what to look for, how to incorporate in barefoot strength training to accelerate movements, training considerations, plyometrics, and really how we can help to develop sports performance. This is an amazing individual to learn from. So without further ado, I'm going to let John get started. And everyone, please feel free, interact in the chat or interact with us before and after.
All right. How's it going, guys? Audio good? All right. So I'm going to share the screen, and then Melissa, just let me know if so we good, Melissa?
Let me see here. I don't think we have you on screen share. I'm going to give you that opportunity now. Sorry, guys, this is Melissa and struggling to get a screen share option. Jill, are you on the call and able to
I'm
have
here.
that?
Let me see what I can do.
Thanks.
John, do you have a button at the bottom that says share screen?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, John, if you just press share screen, it should work for you down below there, right beside chat.
All right.
Yay,
Got it.
that's it.
Perfect.
Can everyone tell we're a bunch of strength coaches and nutritionists and
Awesome.
there we go.
We just lost it, John. Oh, there we go.
Just lost it. Okay.
Okay, it's
I got
back.
your phone, guys, so I'm still figuring it out.
That's okay.
All right. So we should be live now, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started, guys. Like they said, today we're going to be covering basically the most undertrained muscle in most programs, right? And that's going to be the foot. And hopefully we have a lot of, you'll go ahead and get some paper out. We're going to go over a lot of terms, a lot of topics, and just jot down any questions you have as we go along. And we'll try to keep some time at the end. That way we can ask some Q&A and questions, and it'll be a lot of good conversation in that section as well. So to get us going, guys, this basic intro of the kind of topics that Melissa's covered already that we will be covering, but basically we're gonna go over barefoot, the benefits of being barefoot, guys. We're gonna talk about cushion shoes versus minimalist shoes in the gym and running and sports performance. We're gonna talk about some practical exercises that we can go through for improving strength, and we're gonna cover underlying running gait mechanics, right? So like Melissa said, primarily I've worked at the youth level, basically sixth grade all the way up to 18 years old, and then college level. So that's primarily who makes up the bulk of the athletes that I've been able to train. And so we're going to go deep into how we help these athletes, independent of what level they come in at, as far as they would like to go in the sport of whatever their respective sport is, across football, track. And so we'll cover key performance indicators for sprinting. And this is going to be good for anybody, whether you're working with team sports or whether you work with track and field or master's level athletes. And then we're going to go over progressions for new and development athletes. So that's a kind of broad baseline, so you kind of guys know what we're going to be getting into today. Just quick about myself, just like Melissa said, I mean, I've run basically since I was 13 years old. That's been over 23 years now. The average training blocks are 50 weeks a year. So I train year round, and primarily sprinting is the bulk of my training incorporated with strength and conditioning. So the biggest thing, guys, is I've had the pleasure to train under Brooks Johnson, who coached an athlete to every Olympics since 1964. I've been able to train under Dr. Mike Young in Cary, North Carolina, who owns the athletic lab for many years, and been able to work with athletes for over 14 years now. So the best way you learn, guys, is just getting in the trenches and working with people. And so fortunately, I started that young and have been able to collect a lot of data over the years. And so what I always like to start off with, guys, is success leaves clues. This is what one of my mentors, Coach Charles Poliquin, always would say. And in that, he would always focus on the point that, look at successful individuals and look at their track record of getting people into great shape or great results or high level of performance. And I spend a tremendous amount of time, an inverse amount of time, studying, learning, and growing. And so it's a little bit different for me to be on this side teaching, but I'm excited to share just the things I've learned along the way. But in this picture alone, that's Brooks Johnson up in the top right, Coach Charles Poliquin in the bottom. This is Dan Path, who's standing behind the girl sprinting in the middle. And I mean, he's very adept in the world of track and field, and it's a tremendous amount of information he has out that you should look up as well. Coach Mike Young, who I had the pleasure to train with under 3 years. Coach Williams, who started coaching me when I was in high school, and I was later able to, once I finished college, able to go back and help coach and be the head sprint coach for that same club that I actually started with and so that was really cool. And then in the bottom left, you have Dr. Ralph Mann, who's one of the top biomechanics in the world. And he's written a book, and I will write this down for you guys. It's called the Hurdle Sprint Bible. And he has 2 volumes out, guys. And if you work with athletes at any level, that will be an invaluable resource for you to pick up and start reading through. It helped me out a lot. All right, so it all starts with the foot, guys. That's going to be the main focal point of what we're going to go over. And then we're going to talk about all the things that integrates up to upstream and downstream. And so those things that are sought after in the gym can be amplified by traditional integration of improved foot mechanics. So you got to think, guys, like in the United States, from the age of 3 years and on, we spend how much time a day in shoes? 6, 8, 10, 12 hours in shoes, right? But the footwear that we're wearing is not foot shaped, and it restricts the foot motion, right? And so over time, that's going to affect the development of the foot. And because of this, also, the foot often goes unlooked in most training programs, right? Because we always think everything upstream, whether it be tendons in the calves and the Achilles and soleus, or whether we're thinking muscles in the gastroc, or whether we think hamstrings, quadriceps. We're going all the time in a training programs. We're looking at upstream things of what's happening when we don't look at the foot per se. When any deviations we see upstream, whether it be hip, knee, ankle, are going to come from deviations at that foot. And so my intro into minimalist shoes. And so about 6 months ago, we actually moved into a new gym and new training facility. And moving, coincidentally, I kind of strained my hamstring. So I didn't want to rush it. I'm pretty attuned with my body at this point, and I didn't want to push it with sprinting. And so for many years, I've always known about minimalist shoes, and I always, for the most part, have worn them in some capacity. Like in 2005, when Nike first came out with their first pair of Nike free running shoes, I bought the very first pair after reading the research that they did at Stanford University with the cross-country athletes. And I can remember how sore my feet were even to this day when I first got those shoes, right? And so I've always tried to be in a lower heel drop shoe with a wider box that allowed for more mobility, right? But over time, shoes came in, shoes came out of fashion. But after some very interesting research came out from Liverpool University that Vivo actually conducted, I was intrigued and wanted to start and see what I could do from strengthening a foot standpoint. And so that's when I got into Vivo Barefoot for myself. Just a quick reference point. I mean, I walk over 15,000 steps a day generally. I mean, I work all day, Monday through Sunday. And so I'm on my feet quite a bit. Now, I will put a big asterisk if I could on this slide. You do not want to do that. Trust me. When I first started wearing the minimalist shoes, my feet were so weak. Now, mind you, like I said, I've trained since I was 13 years old. I never stopped training. Over 23 years, I've run, I jump, I'm sprinting as fast as I ever have right now. And I mean, I'm on my feet all the time. So I just jumped in the shoes and started walking in them. Well, they make the feet work, and they make them work a lot. And it was very interesting because my feet were very weak. And by the first week, I literally thought I had plantar fasciitis. That's how weak my feet were. And just from walking, I mean, because at this time, like I said, with the hamstring, I wasn't really running. And it was just an aha moment or a eureka moment for myself to go through that. But what was very interesting was like low-level back pain just started to dissipate. I mean, I have red light. We have actually Theralite at our gym. I have Joe, which is a home unit. I have what's called Flex Beam, which is another home unit. I have any modality you can think of, I pretty much have. And I use these things for some chronic, just nagging type of low-level pain. And what was very interesting was once I started being in a zero millimeter heel lift, flat shoe, the back pain started going away. And then what was also very interesting, probably for the past 2 years, I was having like a left Achilles, soleus type of pain. And twice a day, I would have to use the Jove red light. When I was at home, I would use it before work. I would use it before I went and worked out. I was using it twice a day. Literally, that left Achilles and soleus pain just pretty much went away. I mean, with no intervention. And this was something that's been ongoing for almost 2 years now, guys. But as you see in the slides, I got a lot of slides that we're going to cover, guys. When you're on any type of heel lift, you're shortening those tendons and those muscle tissues and going to place more stress on them. And so, but this is just within 2 weeks that I started noticing these things. As I started to build up the capacity and tolerance to move in these shoes and to walk in them, I slowly started, guys, you got to be very slow with these shoes. I started with skipping and jogging. And I mean, my workout would be 15, 20 minutes in the shoes. I would have to stop. That's how much my feet were hurt and how weak they were when I first started. There was no way I could even make it to a full warm up. But just gradually over time, when I was finally able to run after maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, the first thing I noticed was for the last 9 years, I've worn compression socks or compression sleeves. So what happens, guys, where we get a lot of micro tears in the muscles when the muscle tissue vibrates, right? And so when the muscle vibrates, you get micro trauma through there. And if I ran one time without compression sleeves on, I would have shin splint issues, literally one time. And so for the last 9 years, I've always worn compression sleeves. Well, just being in the middle of the shoe over the past 6 to 8 weeks at this point, when I was running, I noticed I did not need those compression sleeves anymore. And then to this day, this has been 6 months now, I haven't worn compression sleeves once, and I'm up to full workouts and full running, full sprinting. So that was another massive eureka moment for me. And we're going to get into why that happened, why I was getting the shin splints over the past 9 years if I didn't wear those compression socks. And it's going to be really cool to just see some of these intrinsics of why these impact forces affect us upstream and from ways that we may not even know about. From a strength standpoint, it was very shocking as well. So we're very big on flywheels. So if you don't have a flywheel, basically it's called an iso-inertial device, guys. And it allows you to go up at whatever velocity and speed that you can move at. It's going to pull you down at that same speed. So it's incredible for transference, for sprinting and sports performance. But I have about 4 years of data using a K-Box device that we have. And to date, the highest I had was about 2,700 watts on the eccentric contraction, which it measures. So it's almost like a velocity-based training, guys. If you can imagine like a push band that gives you that output in those numbers. So I have my full data log from the past 4 years. And I spent extensive time training this modality over the last years. Well, once I had the hamstring injury, after about 6 to 8 weeks, I actually didn't do any of the K-Box. When I came back to the K-Box, my numbers were actually higher than they've ever been. And one of the main reasons was very simple. The feet were stronger. So, I mean, when I would go down, it literally felt like my feet were glued onto that K-Box. Like I would go down and I mean, it felt like I could push through the floor. There was no deviation. There was no overpronation at the bottom. There was no leakage of energy. And so that expression is just more power, more watts, more force. And so that is the first time that I've been over 3,000 watts on the concentric and over 3,100 on the eccentric, which is very high. And ideally what you want to see for sprinting at the speeds that I would like to attain. And so I was able to do that at a speed of 1.3 meters per second, which is also a very fast contraction. So even in that bracket, the fastest I had ever gone was 1.1 meters. So this was all within pretty much the first 6 to 8 weeks of just being in the middle of the shoes. And at this time, I mean, like I said, I still wasn't even up to full workouts, but this was just from just walking. So from a data collection standpoint, it was invaluable just to start seeing these numbers and trends. And it just got me more intrigued with what's happening at the foot and what other performance metrics have been left on the table. So there was, again, significant improvement in unilateral exercises. I mean, the full support position is sprinting. So as you see in this picture right here, guys, and we're going to go over this once we get into kind of measuring and coaching tools and video analysis tools. But you always want to film your athletes and yourself from the front, side, back, top, down, whatever angles you can get, because it's going to create a better picture of how they're expressing force or where energy is going to be leaking out. And so just like this frame you're seeing, when I would be in what's called full support, when the foot is fully flat on the ground, I would see deviations in that form. A lot of those things started to clean up on their own without even having to train them, guys. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that once we kind of get into the nitty gritty of the foot. But as we keep going on in these slides, some of the known benefits of wearing minimalist shoes. Like I said, the Liverpool study showed that there was a 60% increase in foot strength after wearing minimal shoes for 6 months. Now, guys, all they did was walk. This wasn't even any training interventions or anything of that nature. They literally were walking in the shoes and they increased the cross-sectional area of the muscle and muscle volume, okay? But from an athletic standpoint, what intrigues me is the proprioception, right? I have what I call a speed chart, and you can take a screenshot, save it, jot it down, and we're going to dive deeper into that. But you're going to see on that speed chart, I have ground contact time and air time. Now, proprioception is essentially the only way that you're going to improve some of these numbers on this chart. And if you improve those numbers on the chart, your athletes will run faster, you will run faster, right? But at a point, there's only so much that we can do from a technical standpoint. There's only so much we can do from a gym. A lot of what's going to happen is going to come through the foot, or it's going to come through the elastic energy systems of our body, right? And so when the numbers and the margin of improvement is so small, all of these metrics really matter. So kinesthetics, understanding where we are in space, understanding where we are from a time standpoint, motor learning, and increased balance and stability, higher transmissions of force, and increased sensitivity of the plantar receptors on the bottom of the foot. These are all known benefits of just literally walking in a minimalist shoe. And so we just have a simple graphic here to kind of paint a picture, guys. On average, the shoe on the right is what we've been in since we've been kids, right? It's been minimum 8 millimeters of a heel lift. The shoe is always stiff and rigid. There's a tapered toe box, meaning it does, when you hit the ground, guys, your foot should splay. Like, imagine if I put my fist up and I close all my fingers and then I spread my fingers. You want when the foot lands on the ground, it should be splayed like a hand with spread fingers versus a hand with closed fingers, right? We can't dissipate forces and impact forces if that foot is closed and in a tapered box. It does not go through the tissues properly, right? And so a toe spring is what's called a lift. And as you see, the toe is actually lifted up. That's going to affect what's called the medial longitudinal arch and the plantar and the ability to return energy. And then what's called flares on the side. So most shoes, to block pronation, supination, they'll put what's called a flare where they kind of bow out or make the shoe wider and kind of block that motion. Whereas on the left, it's very simple. You have a very flat shoe, it's very flexible, and it has a very wide toe box. So less is more. But this just starts to paint the picture. And you're going to see, just kind of remember this picture, guys, as we start to go through some of these slides into the intrinsic of our sensory systems and how the foot works. So it's all about the sports performance, right? Whether you're coaching youth athletes, high school, college, professional, any metric that we can provide to them that's going to add value is going to allow you to continue to get them to progress. And so in all sports, independent of what that sport is, ground contact is king. So how long they spend on the ground, how much force they put in the ground, how quickly they get off the ground is going to determine their success in that given sport, if it's a field or court sport, right? Now, the receptors on the foot have to be fast for this to happen. And so from a neuromuscular perspective, timing is everything. And one of the ways that you're going to see in these slides is if the intrinsic foot muscles react too slow, impact forces of once we hit the ground are improperly distributed, and that is what causes the chronic issues long term, or simply a plateauing of performance, guys. And so if we're at least privy to some of this information and we have an extra set of eyes on this, in addition to all the great things that we're currently doing, we can help these athletes continue to progress over time. And so on the right, guys, this is what's called, this is a simple graph. This is from Dr. Emily Spiel. It's called plantar receptors, and they have the receptors on the foot, and then they have the sensation that those receptors are very sensitive to. And as you see, most of the receptors on the bottom of our foot are sensitive to stretch, texture, and perception, vibration, and touch, right? And so think about that last slide I showed with the red shoe and the very thick cushioned heel. The thicker the cushion between your foot and the ground, the less sensations are going to go to the foot and the harder we have to hit the ground. And so this is another graph here kind of showing that same picture of landing technique expressed between 3 different athletes. This is a really cool study they did at SMU at the locomotion lab. So on the left, we have an elite competitive sprinter. I think that was this guy actually ran 990, very good at track and field athletes, multiple Team USAs. The guy in the middle, I believe, was a collegiate soccer player. And then we have the person on the right who was a recreational runner. And so, like I said, the ground is where all the performance lies, right? That's what's going to unlock our power. That's going to unlock our performance. In the ground contact phase, it has to be stiff, it has to be fast, and it has to be explosive in the propulsion phase. Well, that's going to be dictated upon how you land. As we look at this picture on the right, we have an athlete and we have a dancer, right? Just look at that athlete's position. The athlete, the foot is in that overpronated position. You can see that medial malleoli, the ankle dropping in. Well, look what happens upstream. You see the knee drop in, you see the hip drop in. And we can just simply look at this picture on the right, and we see that collapse in the frontal plane with our recreational runners. So how many of our general population clients look like that picture? How many of our new athletes look like that picture, right? So our developmental athletes are generally going to fall somewhere in this shapes, and our gen pop people who in personal training clients are going to fall into these shapes as well, right? We want to see something more like what's happening with that dancer on the right, on the bottom right, where they're very stable at the foot, they're very stable at the knee, they're very stable at the hip. And so if you look at that picture of the dancer on the bottom right, and we look at our competitive sprinter, you're seeing those same shapes and forms and positions, right? And so to get these elite level of performances, the ground is king, and we have to account for that and take that into our training programs. And so basically how we get these landings, guys, are the intrinsic muscles of the foot are a key determinant, right? And so stiffness and pre-activation prior to landing are going to determine what happens, right? So this, as we see in this picture, this athlete's foot has collapsed. Well, they reacted too slow, and the pre-activation wasn't fast enough, or they weren't stiff enough, or they weren't strong enough, right? But once we know that, once we see that, once we create a KPI and a landmark for these shapes, we can then address their needs analysis within our programming. And so now we're going to kind of dive into some of those KPIs, what to look at, what to look for, and how we can change. All right, guys. So this is a speed chart. Go ahead and you can take a picture of this, write it down, jot it down. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over each one of these little brackets. And there's more to this chart, but these are just simple landmark positions that can dictate what they need to do in the training gym, what they need to do from a plyometric standpoint, or what they need from a technical standpoint. So understanding these numbers and getting these numbers are how we kind of individualize what each client or each athlete needs, okay? So I can't do one program and expect everybody to get better. It doesn't work that way. You have people who are very elastic and springy, and you have people who need to develop those qualities. Well, either way, we need to provide them a solution for what they're coming to us for once it's improved performance. So stride length, guys, is a key determinant of sprint speed. It's actually called step length, stride length. Now, the elite sprinters, guys, they can run at over 115% of their what's called greater trochanter or their leg length. It is incredible. You'll see a female at 5'2". She's able to run at over 7'6" per step for the 100 and 200 meters. They're able to put down incredible amounts of force, and they're able to literally fly through the air. And so we teach what you're seeing right here. We show to our athletes, and they need to know these numbers, and they have to understand them, guys, because I can't help them get better if they don't know what they're doing, right? And so if I can't put a feeling with something, I'm going to eventually plateau, because the thing that I need to change, I'm not even privy to, or I don't even know that I'm doing. So we create a chart for each one of these athletes, and depending on where they are, we work them out. So whatever their leg length is, there's a specific percent that you want them to be at to hit certain times. And so why I put what feels good is, say I have a youth athlete, 15, 16 years old. Well, they would like to run 12.3 seconds in the 100-meter dash. I'm in the state of Texas, guys. That's going to take you pretty far. You'll probably get to the regionals, potentially regional finals with that type of time, and they're only 16 years old. So that's going to have them on a great trajectory to go to university and be able to run in college. So in order for them to do that, say, for example, it's going to take them to run 6'10" per step. But what feels good, right? I can put them at 6'10", but can they express quality technique, fast ground contact times, and great shapes getting there? Or do we need to work up to that over the years? And so what feels good is, what can I leverage with what they have right now, right? And so we understand that, and that's a number that we work off of. We're going to go over a little bit more on that stride length in the slides, guys. Ground contact time. Like I said, the greatest determinant of sports, whether it's change of direction sport or linear sport like track and field. So eventually the goal, now this is for mainly females I have, guys. And so the goal for them is under 0.10 or faster on the ground. Guys, I'll tell you now, that's going to be blistering fast, because you have to get 0.10, but they're going to need to be able to run at 100%, 103%, 105% of their leg length, okay? And so if they can't do that, we got to go back to the drawing board. And if they can't do it, is it strength or are they rushing it? And so we that's why I have those two words there. And same thing, we create a profile for the athlete, right? So if it's strength, it's things like RSI, it's things like plyometrics, right? It's things like a K-box, it's things like fast eccentric. So we get a big overload that helps them with what's called amortization. The next bracket you want to measure, guys, is ground contact time or air time. So their this number I have right here, 0.135 or faster. Again, this is for the high school, this thing developmental level, or 12 low sprinter to 11 high sprinter, and that's going to take you to college. They can get a scholarship and keep running for another 4 years. And so that's going to be the goal. The thing is, guys, you have two options. Do they need to open up and fly, or do they need to be patient? So what's going to happen, guys, a lot of people think running fast is spinning over like Speedy Gonzalez. And that's when they have to be more patient in the air. They have to give themselves time to fly and cover that necessary step length that they can, right? And so we're going to show you in the next slides when we get into measurement tools, how you can calculate that stride length, how you can calculate their ground contact time, how you can calculate their air time. And once you know these numbers, you have something very tangible to measure how good is my strength training program working? How good are my applied metrics working? Because if these numbers don't change, these athletes are going to run faster, right? But if we're doing the right strength training, right applied metrics, we're going to see transient changes in these numbers, and we're going to see velocity and speeds increasing. And then last thing I have is race goal and steps. So based on their leg length, right, they're going to need to be able to get to that 100 meters in a certain amount of steps, right? So if you look at Usain Bolt, he can cover the 100 meters in about 40 to 41 steps. The other average runners are averaging 44 to 45 steps, guys. Whoa. If you're taking 3 to 4 more steps in order to catch Usain Bolt, you have to do those steps at blistering fast speeds, and it's much harder, right? And so they need to have a basic understanding of what's my race goal and steps. And it's going to be a blend of their stride length and their ability to get off that ground fast. And then we have what's called stride rate, which is just an average of your ground contact time, how long you spend on the ground and your air. Again, at the developmental, I want to see it under 0.25. And once you're cooking and you're running fast, guys, they're going to be actually in what's called 0.23. And it is a substantial difference. You're going to see that just in a minute. But this is just a reference point. We're going to come back to these numbers and how you get them, how you measure them. But if you take these numbers into account, you work with any athlete, whether it's football, lacrosse, track, hockey, soccer, even your long distance runner, if you get an understanding of these numbers, you will be able to help these athletes beyond anything they've done. So why maximal speed matters and why these numbers matters, guys, is even if this is a really cool chart they showed on increasing of maximal speed and how much it improved the ability to repeat sprints. So think soccer, think football, think lacrosse, think about these repeat sports. Well, as this athlete got faster, they're able to repeat that speed at a much higher percentage of their newfound speed. And so this is why it's critical, even for our team sport athletes, we do top end speed work with them because it improves their acceleration and it also improves their ability to repeat these high level bouts over and over and over again. And this is where we start seeing that game breaking performance in the third, fourth quarters for our team sport athletes, guys. So let's go into what gets measured, gets managed. Okay, so I have a couple of different devices up here. And let's breeze through these. The top left is something everybody, if you don't have, should go ahead and download. It's called Coach's Eye. It's a video application. You can download it in the App Store or the Google Play. Guys, I've used this for over 7 years, and I have a tremendous amount of data on this. And honestly, every number we went over was developed using this simple video analysis where you're able to go frame by frame. So at the end of the day, it's a free app to download, and then they have all the applications you can see on the right. They're tools that allow you to draw, time certain units, and get your times. That's an additional add-on, but it may be $12 for the whole year. So incredible value, guys. Now, Freelap is a timing system, and there's also another one called Arena Gear. Both are very good, but any distance under pretty much 10 meters for accuracy, you need AccuTrack timing. And so we use this laser timing system, one, because we need to be honest with ourselves in saying, is our program working or is it not? And so I want to be very objective in that standpoint. And if they're not improving, we need to know that so we can address and change and tweak what we need to tweak. And so we use this to standardize our timing systems. We line our gates up at the same distances on the same, whatever distance we at. We have specific setup points And so we have over now 4 or 5 years of data collection using this timing system, and we can create great systems, and we can pretty much know where athletes are at any given moment and what they're going to run in the 100 or 200 or whatever, or the 40-meter dash for our team sport athletes, right? So the free lap is an inexpensive electric timing system that is great, and it is great for groups, guys. We train in a group setting. Sometimes we have 10, 12, 14 athletes. I can have them running through the free lap constantly, and I can record all their data and then export it to myself and keep a profile of how they're progressing week over week. So if you're in a team sport, guys, definitely look it up. Simplyfaster.com has that available for North America, and you can order it directly from there. But I've used that since maybe 2014, guys. And I mean, I still have my original unit that I bought. That's how sturdy it is. And all you need is AA batteries. Now, the cool thing and kind of the newest addition for us is what's called a laser timing and a contact grid. And this is from a company in Norway called Muscle Labs University. And as you can see at the bottom, guys, it is a computer software. You set it up at the track. It's very quick too. It takes 2-3 minutes to set up. It's no downtime on the setup. But your ground contact time, your air time, your stride rate, your step length, your max velocity and peak velocity, as soon as an athlete runs through the timing gate, you get an instant printout of those numbers. Whereas with Coach's Eye, I can get those numbers, but it's going to take me 3-4 minutes to literally go frame by frame by frame on every single step and every single flight path in the air to get those same numbers. So it's not practical when I have 10 athletes at a practice, okay? And I'm not doing that. It's just too many of them, and that's why we use free lap right now. But I need those numbers because as our athletes get better, they matter, okay? And so we just incorporated this. So if we come back and do this again, I'll have a lot of numbers for you guys. What I'm most interested in, though, is peak velocity. It's really cool because a laser allows you to assess a constant distribution of speed. So you see how long it takes them to get to top speed. You will see the peak speed because you got to understand, guys, if I use free lap and I timed a 10-meter segment, it's going to give me the average of that 10 meters, not the peak. So say I have an athlete who runs 8.6 meters per second for 10 meters. At some point, they could have been 9 meters and then they just dropped off, right? And so that's what we really want to see because you can really see how your programming is going once you get that finite with your measurements. But it's a very quick setup, and that's Muscle Labs, guys. So these are the main tools that we use. For everybody, recommend getting Coach's Eye in a free lap timing device or arena gear for your timing, and you'll be good to go. So going back into sport performance and why our footwear matters, guys. The more sensitive the bottom of the foot, the more accurate the muscle response will be. Again, let's take back to that picture, that thick red shoe, that thick cushion. The more cushion between our foot and the ground, the less sensitive the bottom of the foot is going to be. And so elite sprinters are able to pre-activate and isometrically contract the intrinsic muscles of the foot prior to landing, leading to increased force applied to the ground, right? This is how they're getting these massive forces in the ground. This is what allows them to fly through the air. Elite sprinters, guys, Usain Bolt, they can run almost at 9 feet per step. If I set a pair of cones up at 9 feet per step, you would have to take a running jump to make that distance for most people. It's incredible, and they're able to do it in a lightning fast time. Why footwear matters, though, is because 80% of our plantar receptors are sensitive to vibration, guys. And the thicker the sole of the shoe, the more dull those vibrations and the harder we have to hit the ground. It is incredible. So I have a couple slides that we're going to show and go over this. So this right here, guys, is a great graph from the SMU Locomotion Lab. And it's showing an elite sprinter and the force they're able to apply to the ground. It's over 1,000 pounds at the peak, guys, but they're doing it in less than 0.08 of a second. If you take out a stopwatch or a timer, you get your phone in the stop, and you go to the stopwatch, and you hit the start-stop button, it is almost impossible to stop it faster than 0.08. And they're doing this and applying over 1,000 pounds of force, guys. And so we're going to get into how it's done. It's not magic. It's science, and it's sports science. And when you break it down into tangible components, we can help our athletes express these motions and movements much better. And so as we see here, this is another graph showing an average runner. Okay, look at this lady up on the top right. She's putting down 400 to 500 pounds of force. But because of her landing, she's on the ground for 0.30. If you did that in a sprint, guys, they would not need a timer to get you. They would need a calendar. That's how slow that is, understand. Now, the longer you're on the ground, the more forces are distributed up the body into tissues they shouldn't be going into, right? And so we want a fast, we want a sharp, we want a brisk contact, we want a 4-foot landing, okay? And so remember this picture, remember that 0.3. So it doesn't matter whether we run, walk, or jog. It is critical in the vibrations and how they're going through our body and how we land, okay? So moving on to pre-activation, this is a really cool graph. They actually did this in the LA Times. There's a graphic they were doing, and they kind of profiled each athlete going into the Olympics. And as you see right there in Usain Bolt, his massive stride, it was well over 8 feet per step. And so this study here in 2005, it showed changes in muscle activity with increasing speed. So the faster the runners were going, what was happening? And this came out of Finland, I believe. So the results suggest that increased pre-contact EMG potentiates the functional role of the stretch reflexes. Basically, that foot was isometrically turning on before it even hit the ground, guys. It increased the tendomuscular stiffness and it enhanced the force production in the braking or propulsive phase of running. So once they hit the ground, they put in more force, and then they were able to turn it around in that propulsive phase. So I have a couple slides down the road, guys. We're going to get back into these propulsive phases and braking phases and what to look for as a coach. So improving ground contact. This is a force time chart, a ground contact time and forces going into the body at a walking speed, at a jogging speed, at a running speed, and at a sprinting speed. And so how can we create that much force as an elite sprinter? Or, I have a developmental athlete. I know that force into the ground is a key determinant of how fast they're going to run. What can I do as a coach to help them? Well, the biggest thing they need is what's called a pre-activation, right? So we cannot be passive when we hit the ground. We have to be active when we hit the ground. And so if that athlete is not contracting isometrically fast enough upon landing, those impact forces over time lead to itises, stress fractures, shin splints, issues in the foot bones. And so the muscles of the foot should contract isometrically to dampen those vibrations prior to landing. If so, the body's able to dampen and absorb those vibrations, then the energy is stored in the muscles of fascia connective tissue where the elasticity is the greatest, and then it is being released as kinetic energy upon push off or the propulsion phase, okay? And so the biggest takeaway from improving our ground contact, guys, is pre-activation. Now, I got a few slides to hammer this point in, and we're going to go over later some drills that force this to happen as well. And so another really cool slide here, guys. It shows force and it shows time, okay? And this is just to kind of hammer home how fast these times we're talking about are, okay? So vibrations, peak impact forces will occur within 0.05 milliseconds, okay? And how do we perceive these vibrations? Is through what's called the Pacinian corpusculature. And every layer between the foot and the ground are going to delay this reaction. So picture to the right is how hard you have to hit the ground depending on your footwear. And so if you look at this graph, guys, the thicker your shoe, the harder you have to hit the ground because you're not getting that vibration for the body to know how to react. And so why do I keep getting issues in the Achilles? Why do I keep getting plantar fasciitis? Why do I keep getting stress fractures? Why do I keep getting hip, knee, back pain, right? Maybe you get to, at a point, you got to look down at the feet and understand what you're wearing and how your body's running. Because we take running for granted. We take locomotion for granted. We don't understand these forces that our bodies and tissues have to handle. And so,
Can we just have everyone mute themselves, please? And thank you.
all right, so impact forces. So impact forces are how we move as human beings. We go off vibrations, right? We hit the ground and walking, we know how much force to put into it. And so they happen very fast. and they can enter the body in less than 0.05 milliseconds. Well, fast twitch muscles, guys. And so as strength coaches, we're very focused on the muscles, right? We've always been focused on the muscles. So fast twitch muscles take anywhere from 0.023 to 0.07 milliseconds to meet their peak maximal contraction. So sometimes our fast twitch alone can't be enough and can't turn on quick enough to handle those impact forces, and they get distributed into the wrong tissues, okay? And so improving that ground contact part 3, we need a rapid deceleration of the lower limb that occurs when the foot and ground collide. It's gonna happen through pre-activation. But what's really cool, guys, and they actually did a study in 2012 at the University of College of London, I believe, and it showed what's called competitive sequencing. And what that is, guys, is our body has a feed-forward response. After 3 to 4 steps, the body has essentially programmed the amount and the degree of vibrations that are coming into our body. Meaning, you're gonna be 1 step ahead of those impacts. So this is how we essentially do pre-activation, and this is how we start to navigate and move. And so if we're able to make our body more sensitive to these vibrations and impacts, can we express motion better? That was my hypothesis. That's why I went into a minimalist shoe, and I essentially can run. I haven't worn spikes in 6 months. I used to have spikes with a carbon fiber insert, guys, and the air bubble, the Air Max Nike spike with the carbon fiber insert. It's basically the stiffest, strongest, springiest, highest level technology track spike. Well, after 6 months in minimalist shoes, I run the same ground contact time, if not faster, in tennis shoes. I have not even worn spikes again as I still work in these shoes. So it's been an incredible journey for me, and even for our athletes as well, I'll go into in a bit. So this is that study that they did on competitive sequencing, which is essentially showing that feed-forward loop of how we navigate and how we're able to make motion look easy. So coordination is king. So basically the brain prepares for those complex actions milliseconds beforehand. So improving ground contact part 4, a key determinant, guys, is you need to be strong enough when you hit that ground. If you're not strong enough, you will buckle, you will collapse, you will yield, your amortization will shoot through the sky, and you're not going to be able to get off that ground. So this is where, as personal trainers and strength coaches, our programming matters, okay? We have to have a solid base and a solid foundation to even begin to build off of if we want to improve these numbers, right? And this is just another picture showing that addressing the vertical demands of running. Again, we saw that our body weight can be up to 5 times when we're at a maximal speed. And what happens, guys, is that on that top form, you see that hip drop. Once that hip drops, guys, tick, 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 my ground contact time's going up. Okay, my flight path is going to be altered. And so as you start to create landmark positions for these shapes, and you also start to time these positions and how long it's taking your athlete to get out of them, we're really able to get nitty-gritty with our programming. And so master your movement, drills, drills, drills. Guys, we do 3 drills, but we do them incredibly well. We do A skips, we do front side butt kicks, we do high knee runs. It looks like we're getting close on time, so I'm gonna kind of shoot through these so we can get into the Q&As, but plyometrics, we do standing long jump, standing triple jump with 2 feet, and then standing triple jump single leg. And we analyze these against our strength training, guys, because if I can't get my athlete to move better, if they're not expressing force better, then the strength training is not enough for them. I need to tweak something with them. And so whether it's running or whether it's applied metrics, we need to see transference of what we're getting in the gym out onto the field or out onto the track or out onto the court, okay? And so wicket drills, like I said earlier, guys, pre-activation is king. Pre-activation is the only way that we're going to run faster because it allows those intrinsic muscles to turn on isometrically, and it literally turns your foot into a hammer. Think of a hammer hitting the ground, boom, and we put down a big, big force. So what happens with a wicket, guys, is you can use a wooden stick, you can put down a T-shirt, you can put down any object in front of the body. We space these up at the athlete's corresponding step length. So say this athlete here, she was running 9 meters per second on free lap. That's 20.15 miles per hour, average over 30 meters, guys. This is for our high school girls, the facility record. This was 1190 100-meter runner, and she's at university now on scholarship running track and field Division I. And so When I set an object up in front of the body will not let you hit that. It will see it and it will force you to put that foot down very fast. It does not let you be lazy. And so this is where wickets come in. They're a phenomenal tool and they help you improve that pre-activation without having you have to coach or teach the athlete, guys, because a lot of these things that happen so fast, we mentally cannot think about doing them. We need something reactive, responsive, where it's forced to happen, okay? And so improving ground contact time, energy transfer, all of this goes into propulsion, guys. If I can't push off that ground properly, none of the stuff we talked about matters, okay? And so right here we have one of the last athletes to ever get a double Olympic medal in the 400 and 800 meters. He was 6'2", but he had an unreal step length of 9 feet per step. So how much elite level reaction force did he put in the ground, right? It's and once we get into it, guys, concentrically with muscles, they're not doing this, guys. It's going through the fascias, the connective tissues, the tendons, and they're able to return energy from the ground very effectively. Now, this is something that we can help every athlete with. I don't care if they're a 13, 14-second 100-meter runner, we can help them get down to 12, right? If they're 13 seconds, we can get them down to 11 seconds. We can have them go to college. And so that's our goal. That's our plan with everybody that comes in, is to create something to get them to that next level. And so this is a really cool study that showed that the majority of mechanical energy was turned through the plantar fascia and Achilles tendon, right? 51% of the stride was returned through those tissues, but it's contingent on those tissues being able to work. And when we have thick soles in between our foot and the ground, it's going to affect this, guys. And so have we ever seen athletes who appear to bounce? This athlete here was 11:39 in the 100 meters. Look how high she is off the ground. She could run the 200 in 23:11. She was a NCAA Division II All-American. We need to understand that optimal ground contact time, optimal step length are king, and we have to understand kinetic energy, right? Because there's only so much we can do at a gym because these velocities and contractions happen so fast, right? This is a great example of what happens when I'm in a flat shoe versus a heel shoe. As you see on the right, that foot, when it's flat, those tissues are long. And the longer those tissues are, the more energy they can store and release. When my tissues are short, look at that calf and Achilles and the women in the heel. Well, if you think about it, if I'm in a 12-millimeter shoe, it's stressing my tendons, it's stressing my gastroc. I don't have the same energy storage potential, right? And so this study here showed that the longer the Achilles tendon length, type 2 fiber and muscular leg length may enhance the potential for stress shortening cycle, running economy, and physiological effort while running. Again, because they're storing and releasing that energy very effectively. So flywheel is a big thing that we use at our gym, guys. This is one of our training considerations. It increases intermuscular coordination, increased ability to resist the amortization upon landing, strengthens those tendons, guys, and increases speed for change of direction sports. And then we have maximizing that push-off phase here, guys. We have the contact phase, mid-stent phase, and propulsion phase. Guys, we only have the power. You only have the power you load in deceleration or contact phase. If there's an issue in that phase, our power output is affected. Your glutes cannot fire, they only can fire as strong as you can supinate that foot, okay? And so this plane right here is showing what's happening in that transverse plane when we sprint, guys. And the glute max is our most powerful hip extensor in the sagittal plane, and it's the external rotator in the transverse plane. But again, the glutes are only as strong as you can supinate that foot. And so at Loughborough University, they actually showed this. They showed elite sprinters, sub-elite sprinters, and a control group, Gen Pop. And they showed that the largest separator was a glute max in the lead sprinter between sub-elite sprinters, guys. And so if our big toe mobility is compromised, you cannot fully extend that hip and you cannot fire that glute. And the power of the glute is limited by the rate that our foot is able to supinate, right? And so again, if I'm able to just help get my athlete better mobility through those tissues by putting them in a mentalist shoe, and it's going to unlock all these things for them, that was a no-brainer for myself. And I had to give it a shot, and I wore them for 6 months myself to test these theories. And so one of our most powerful supinators is a posterior tibialis. The only contact point between the body and the ground is a foot. And the ground is the power source. We can't get anything back from that power source if we hit that ground and our foot isn't adequate or ready for it. So to fully use the ground, you have to be able to control that supination at propulsion phase. And that's going to primarily come through having incredibly strong intrinsic muscles of the foot, guys. So practical applications, going to try to speed through so we can get to some Q&A. The clues have always been there. Look at the golden era bodybuilders. They all train barefoot, guys. Look at the incredible physiques they were able to develop. So how do we integrate this? With our athletes, I kept it very simple. They're in school for 8 hours a day. I said, get you a pair of the Vivo barefoot, guys. Y'all wear them at school. That's your new K-Swiss, Nike, Adidas, the Air Force Ones. Instead of being in those shoes, just go walk in this shoe. And then I have them come out to track practice, and I say, wear your normal track shoe. Because, again, it takes a tremendous amount of time for your foot to adapt, guys. You cannot just jump in these shoes and go run it. If you do, write me in about a week or two and tell me how it went. And because I tell you, your foot's gonna hurt. And so that's what we do with our athletes, guys. We get them in the shoes. We just say, hey, you're at school for 8 hours a day. Go walk. And they say, Coach, I don't like how they look. I say, well, if I can get 60% stronger feet and legs, is it worth it? And they said, now that's worth it. So that's how we try to get that message conveyed to them, guys. A big thing, guys, is toe splay and intrinsic foot muscles. These are called short foot. You can just look these up on YouTube, guys. It's very hard to do. You should try it yourself. And if you have trouble with doing a foot splay like that picture, you have a trouble doing short foot exercise, I can tell you now, just simply walking in those shoes, those two things improve. So for me, in the definition of insanity, guys, is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. Like I said, I run for 23 years. And so for me, squatting, lifting, deadlifting, and then not seeing that transfer for the track is not enough. We had to keep digging deeper, and that's how we got to a lot of these numbers, a lot of these metrics, and we've been pleased with the results we've seen, and we look forward to more. So thank you for checking in, following, guys. I got our Instagram, our email, website. Thank you to Designs for Sports, Vivo Barefoot, Andy Jackson. And they got a code for you guys if you would like to try the Vivo Barefoot. So I'll open it up to Melissa now.
Thank you so much, John. That was amazing. Our entire team is standing barefoot. I hope we've been really soaking in this information. I'm going to open it up quickly. I know we are 2 minutes before the hour, but if there are questions, anyone, you can kind of unmute at this point in time or use the chat box, and we'll open it up to open forum here. Is there anyone currently using barefoot, Vivo, or other minimalist type shoes?
I got a quick question for John. What's up, John? How you doing, man?
What's up, sir?
Great presentation, man, by the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I had a quick question. Like you were talking about how you just get your athletes to wear them to school and not really worry about it with on the track. Would you recommend, like at the beginning, like to kind of get them their foot accustomed? Would you recommend the same thing about like training in the weight room? Like if you have someone, like you wouldn't just right away throw them into training in the shoes as well? Or is that different because it's not as much ground contact and it's more like planted? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when we're in the gym, depending on the day and activities we have, I do like for them to go ahead and bring them to the gym. But the track itself, yeah, we try to keep them in the cushion shoe just because it takes a while to break them in. But yeah, like even our like general population clients, we'll have them just wear them to the gym because their impact forces are going to be much lower because they're not doing the same level of sprinting. But it's a good way to break them in is just wear these on your upper body day. Let's start with that for the first month, okay? Then second month, okay, let's start wearing them on your lower body day.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And just to add on that, just kind of building off that, like I've been wearing them for a while and I really like them. But the main thing that I noticed, and obviously it's kind of like exposing a problem, like squatting with them with no heel elevation at all is difficult for a lot of people. And like, I know like realistically you want to, like everyone should be able to squat barefoot ass to grass. But like for some people, that's a really long mission. Like I've been able to kind of like steadily work away at it, and now I can in my Vivos. But for a lot of people, like especially if you're training with an athlete, like what it kind of like goes down to the question of like what's more worth it, like stopping the range of motion or would you just elevate the heels in that case? Or
No,
would you
we'll elevate the heel.
Yeah.
So proper range first. So we will elevate the heel for most, as you know, because they're missing that full. Because over time, just by doing that alone, it's going to improve their dorsiflexion at the ankle by being in that middle. So yeah, for sure. We still keep the heels elevated, but then for our lunges, they're going to benefit, right?
100%.
Yeah, they'll benefit from all our split squat variations and even just being able to walk in them. So yeah, we still keep the heels elevated on squats. Yeah, because we want impeccable technique on those positions.
Yeah. So it would be your preference then, like you would rather go like, because even sometimes right now I put on like my Olympic lifting shoes when I squat or whatever, like, and this might be just a personal preference, but you would think like I would be able to transfer more force, or someone would be able to transfer more force going heels elevated in barefoots rather than throwing on Olympic lifting shoes.
So the big thing is, because the toe has to splay. Like if your toe's there, you're going to be limited in force output. So when that toe splays, boom, our propulsion is very high. So in my experience, I've hit I hit the most on deadlifts. I hit the most on the K-box squats, and I haven't done barbell, but my K-box is through the roof, and my deadlifts are through the roof on trap bar. And a big part of that is that we get access to more tissue, more fibers when our foot can splay. So I would say if you're not like, and that was the thing is like, if you don't have like an agenda and you don't have to do something, give it a shot.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. Yep.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
Question in the chat from Naomi. So her question is the goal to try and use minimalist shoes for full sprint workouts and competitions?
So yeah, I would say for the long-term goal, yes, I would like to see their foot strong enough to wear them for full training sessions, but no, we still spike up. So you want the spikes, but the thing is to get the most out of the spike, you want that foot strong, right? So like I said, I had those Nike Air Max, they had the air bubble, they had a carbon fiber insert, but that shoe is only as good as the foot that's strong that's put into it, right? And so if we get a strong foot and we put it into a type of spike like that, that's when we get a great result. So yes, I do like we wear them all for sprint practices, but when it's time to spike up, we spike up for sprinting, and then we put those back on, and then that's how we do it. But yes, the goal is to basically, as long as you would wear your normal tennis shoes, you'll wear the minimalist shoe.
And just to kind of go from the K-box statement, when you're talking to Andrew with his question, Chris is asking, he has the K-box. Are you doing regular squats or split squats or both?
Oh, now I think if you can get somebody doing split squats on that K-box, they're gonna run faster. Period. That's an incredible tool. What we do, because our athletes are younger, and as you know, it's very hard to teach those skills on that K-box. We start them off with regular squats, and this is after they've been able to do about 1.5 to 1.7% body weight on a trap bar deadlift, and their structural integrity is strong enough to handle those type of contractions. So we move on the squats, and then once they get it good at squats, maybe by the time they're a junior or senior, we're doing single leg split squats on K-box. But yes, if you got an athlete who's ready for that, I love that motion.
Hey, John, I got a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I was wondering, do you at all take into consideration different foot types in terms of like flat feet versus high arch, and how you would like program differently?
Yeah. So basically, a lot of whether the foot's flat or whether they have a hard arch, generally what you'll see is if they need both populations need to go into the shoe slow, and their breaking time is going to be much longer. But you will see that person with that flat foot, they will get an arch, because generally when you have what's called an abductor brevis halicusis, and that's one of our medial muscles, one of the thickest muscles, that starts to rise up the moment it has to. But in a shoe, when it's resting, it doesn't work. So you'll see a lot of those issues start to remedy themselves as the surrounding musculatures of the foot get better. But I would say just take the time for sure. Like literally wear them like an hour a day for the first week, and then 2 hours for the next week. Like be patient.
Okay, thank you.
two additional questions from the chat box. Are you using anything for horizontal training outside of just run sprints like a 1080 sprint or a run rocket? And then another question on supplementation. So we'll let that one get answered and then I'll ask you the follow-up.
Okay. So 1080 sprint, I love it. As you know, you almost got to sell a kidney to get one.
Hey, you got two kidneys?
So, but actually that's the next thing on our agenda. And we're probably gonna do the Dynaspeed because Muscle System Labs, they allow all to integrate in. So, because we got the laser from Muscle System Labs, we got the contact grid, and then our next thing is gonna be the Dynasystems. But I love the Run Rocket. Run Rocket is great. Run Rocket is great. We don't have that, but what we do is we got a lot of athletes, so I make them work, and we use resistance bands, and we'll do contrast work for acceleration like that. And then the next question was supplements. You most certainly, guys, vitamin C and collagen, right? So what happens is, especially when you start doing a lot of plyometrics and we get micro trauma, micro tears in our tendons, guys. Well, when that collagen lays back down, it's not laid. We have type 1 collagen. Well, what lays down is type 3 collagen. Well, type 3 collagen is much tighter and much more brittle. So you want to make sure they have all the necessary amino acids that allows those tissues to recover with the right properties, the right type of collagen. You want to make sure you got a good vitamin C because that allows our body to constantly renew our collagen. So those are two things we like to see them have for sure from a supplementation standpoint.
I just put in the chat box for those who want to dig a bit deeper there, collagen complete and hydration complex.
Yes, because those
hydration
go directly
complex,
to the tissues.
absolutely. Yeah, it definitely contains almost 2 grams of vitamin C, despite its name being, hydration. There's a lot more in there. So that could be used based on the protocol that John just mentioned. Anyone else? You can unmute.
I unmute? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
you're good.
Okay. Thanks a lot for answering my questions. I just typed them in. Figured I'd ask like this if it's better for me. Yeah, this is awesome information, man. I could ask you like a ton of questions, but I'm curious in regards to when you're in the weight room with these kids, because what I'm noticing is I've been looking at the foot ankle complex and stuff like that from Cal Dietz and Chris Corfus for a while now. And I'll have somebody like still do some Poliquin stuff like the CLAT test. And now I'm thinking, I don't know if it's the VMO at all, because if the foot's pronating and the knees dropping in, I think I got a guy with a weak foot. So I don't know if I even believe any of that anymore. And I'm working hard at trying to get these people to listen to me in regards to the shoes. I'm struggling. So I took screenshots. So I'm gonna try to get them on that. Sometimes I don't think they believe me. But in regards to what you're doing in the weight room with a lot of these kids to produce more, I'll have them do like a counter movement jump and a static jump, and I'll look at the differences. And I'll know on a force velocity profile, okay, these kids are just weak. I got to get them stronger. But then I want to make sure I'm picking the right exercises. So I'm trying to do more like kind of like a Cal Dietz, like eccentric focused, isometric focused, and concentric. I'll use my K box and the stuff you're talking about. But is there anything like you're doing in the weight room that you're seeing like a big difference with? I've got a lot of people, I'm trying to have them stay almost on the balls of their feet to strengthen their foot. And I'm still seeing dysfunction sometimes. I'm still seeing knees drop in and stuff like that. Are you finding any really good stuff you're using to help with that in the weight room?
Absolutely. So this is the first year I did it, but we put everybody on it. Once they can do basically a good form on the goblet squat, right? They have full range of motion, hamstring covers, calf, chest up, all the positions we want to see. We transition on the trap bar. And I've seen linear. I mean, from this summer till today, linear progress. We do a maximal strength day on Monday. That's where we go up to a higher load on trap bar, and we hammer the eccentric component. And I mean, it is very strict. And I've had them go barefoot. Some of them, like you said, they're not gonna get the shoes. I say, you don't gotta get the shoes, but you're gonna take them off, right? So we just take off the shoes, and we got that foot stronger.
Hey man, how's it going?
Now, most of our female athletes.
Dude, I just found an email from you in my spam box.
Brian, mute yourself, please.
Sorry, I didn't know I wasn't
So trap bar deadlift has been a critical kind of KPI lift for us because one, it allows us to still kind of train that position in a safe position in that squat pattern. But the systemic load we can place on the body and the demands we can place on that foot, ankle, hip, knee, and low back complex is very high. And with our time under tension component, I've seen a lot of those foot issues over pronation, over supination start to correct themselves, and their lows have just gone up. So our average, like youth female, I mean, our ninth grade girls, they all pull, 225, 230 pounds, and they're able to jump off the ground. And so then I've seen that transfer onto the track, and now we're able to, they're running at 19 miles per hour, getting close to that 9 meters per second that we want to see.
Would there, one last thing, I'm sorry, would there be any benefits for me to buy like a push sled for different velocities so I'm working horizontal force vectors and not
I
just
love
vertical?
those. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, for sure. We use that prowler a lot in the kind of GPP early phases for sure, because if they're too weak to push and they don't understand that shape they have to push in, we're not going to get our top speed anyway.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Amazing questions from Chris. I love it, everyone. The interaction, this is where obviously everything comes together. The questions, the opportunity to, pick the expert's brain. So I know we're quarter past now. John, I think one of the most important questions after a presentation like that with all of those amazing tidbits is where can people find you so that if they want to continue this conversation, continue to touch base, they're able to do that?
So we got the Instagram. We're not great at posting, but we try to do better. But we got @TrainVibe. That's our business, and then my personal one's @JMac Fitness. But we'll try to get better at posting.
So for those that are on the call or were on the call and are catching the replay, a replay will be provided on the Designs for Sport website under education, under the education tab. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Andrew. I had a typo there. It's JMac, not Jack Mac. So TrainVibe and JMac Fitness. I have that in the group chat. You can also access the replay of our masterclasses and previous masterclasses there. You can also, John is one of our sport advisory board members, incredibly privileged to have him, as I mentioned before, and you can also get in contact with him through the website. So for all those that attended, for all those catching the replay, thank you so much for being here. John, thank you so much for all this information and your time. I'm throwing out a lot of expensive high heels. I'm upset. And to everyone else that would like to continue to carry this conversation on, please feel free to reach out to John, to Vive, show them some love. And without further ado, I will close the call for today. Good afternoon, everyone. Good night. Good morning.
All right.
Where you
Thanks
are.
for attending,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks, John. Awesome job.
That's
Thank you.
world-class stuff, John. World-class, man. Unbelievable.
Thank you. Thank you.